Thomas lived in a small, quiet town where everyone knew each other. Life there was simple, sometimes too simple. People spent their days working in fields, small shops, or at home, and at night they gathered at the town square to share stories and gossip. Thomas was a kind man, quiet and hardworking, but he wasn't very rich. He lived alone in a modest little house at the edge of town, with a small garden where he grew vegetables and a few flowers. Despite his modest life, he had a warm heart and a gentle nature that people who knew him appreciated, even if many found him a little odd because he kept mostly to himself. One bright morning, Thomas decided to visit the town market. The market was always lively at this hour, full of vendors calling out the prices of fresh vegetables, fruits, bread, and other small goods. Children ran between the stalls laughing, while mothers and fathers haggled over the prices of necessities. The air was filled with a mixture of smells: freshly baked bread, ripe fruit, spices, and the faint scent of the nearby river. Thomas walked slowly, enjoying the sunshine and the calm of the early morning. As he strolled past the market stalls, his eyes caught sight of something unusual. Near the edge of the marketplace, sitting on the dusty ground, was a little girl. She looked no older than 7 or 8, her clothes torn and filthy and her hair tangled with dust and bits of straw. Her bare feet were smudged with dirt, and her face, though small and delicate, was streaked with tears and grime. She looked frightened and alone, her eyes wide and cautious as she watched the busy crowd. Thomas stopped in his tracks. His heart ached at the sight. He had never seen a child in such a state before, and the sight of her stirred something deep inside him. He moved closer, keeping his distance at first so as not to scare her. The girl flinched slightly but did not run away. Instead, she hugged her knees, shivering a little, though the sun was warm overhead. The market vendor, a tall man with a gruff voice, noticed Thomas staring. "Ah, you're looking at her," he said. "She's a poor thing, isn't she? Been wandering the streets for days. Nobody claims her. You can have her for $1 if you want." Thomas blinked. He had heard of people selling small items for a few coins, but he had never heard of a human being sold like that. The words made him uneasy, but he also knew that the vendor was not being cruel. It was simply the harsh reality of life in their town. Children who had no parents or who had been abandoned often ended up in the care of strangers. For a moment, Thomas hesitated. Could he really take responsibility for this little girl? He had no family, no children of his own. He didn't have much money to spare, just enough for his daily needs. But as he looked into her eyes, he felt a strong pull in his heart. This child needed someone and he could help. Somehow he knew he could not walk away. "All right," he said softly. "I will take her." The vendor raised an eyebrow but did not argue. Thomas reached into his pocket, took out a single coin and handed it over. The girl looked at the coin, then at Thomas, confused. She had never known anyone to care for her. Her small hands trembled as she slowly allowed Thomas to take her by the hand. At first her grip was weak, unsure if she could trust him. But Thomas held her hand gently, speaking to her in a soft, calm voice. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I will take care of you. You are safe with me." The walk back to Thomas's house was quiet. The girl stayed close, occasionally glancing up at him with wide eyes. She did not speak, and Thomas did not push her to talk. He understood that she was scared and unsure of the world around her. Sometimes the best way to show care is through patience and gentle action. When they arrived at his home, Thomas opened the door and let her inside. The little house was small but clean. There was a kitchen with a wood-burning stove, a small table, a few chairs, and a bedroom with a simple bed and a quilt. Thomas knelt down and smiled at her. "This will be your home now," he said. "You can stay here as long as you like." The girl looked around with cautious curiosity. She had never seen such a clean, cozy place before. Thomas noticed her staring at the small flowers on the windowsill and the neat arrangement of pots in the kitchen. He led her to the kitchen and gave her a cup of warm milk and a slice of bread. She hesitated at first, but then slowly took the bread and milk, nibbling and sipping as she warmed herself by the stove. Over the next few hours, Thomas worked quietly, cleaning her clothes and brushing the dirt from her hair. The girl remained still, letting him help her. She had never experienced such kindness before. Every gentle word and careful movement made her heart feel lighter, though she did not yet know how to express it. Thomas spoke softly, asking her name. "Do you have a name, little one?" he asked. She shook her head, a small shake that showed both fear and uncertainty. Well, Thomas said with a smile, then I will call you Lily. You will be Lily from now on. Lily's lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. She liked the sound of the name. It felt safe, like the first word she could trust in a long time. Days passed, and Thomas continued to care for Lily. He prepared warm meals for her, taught her simple chores around the house, and even read to her from a small collection of books he had collected over the years. Lily listened intently, her eyes lighting up at every story, learning words she had never known. Slowly her laughter began to fill the small house. It was soft at first, like a quiet melody, but it grew louder and freer with each passing day. The townspeople began to notice the change in Thomas. Some were curious, others suspicious. Why would a man like him take in a dirty little girl? They whispered. But Thomas didn't care about their gossip. He only cared about Lily, about helping her feel safe and loved for the first time in her life. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Thomas and Lily sat in the small garden outside. The air was cool and the flowers glowed in the golden light. Thomas handed her a small sketchbook and a pencil he had found in the market. Here, he said, you can draw whatever you like. Lily took the pencil cautiously, but then began to draw. At first the lines were messy and uneven, but as she continued, shapes began to emerge. Flowers, animals, and small scenes of the world she had never seen. Thomas watched with amazement. You have a gift, he said quietly, not wanting to scare her with too much praise. Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide. Do you really mean it? She asked. Thomas nodded. Yes, you are special, Lily. You have a heart full of courage and a mind full of wonder. I promise to help you grow. For the first time in her young life, Lily felt hope. She felt that she belonged somewhere, that someone cared for her unconditionally. She curled up beside Thomas as the night settled over the small town, listening to the soft creaking of the old house and the distant calls of the night birds. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Thomas discovered that Lily was not only intelligent but also incredibly kind. She helped him with simple chores, watered the garden, and even learned to cook small meals. Thomas often marveled at how quickly she adapted and how much joy she brought into his quiet life. Though the townspeople continued to watch and whisper, Thomas and Lily were happy. They had found in each other a connection that went beyond words, a bond built on care, trust, and simple acts of love. Thomas had bought a girl for $1, but what he had really gained was a companion, a friend, and a reminder that kindness could change everything. By the end of that first week, Lily's transformation was already noticeable. Her face was cleaner, her hair brushed, and her clothes mended and washed. But more importantly, her eyes had changed. They were no longer scared and wary. They shone with curiosity, trust, and a glimmer of joy. Thomas knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey, but for now, he felt content knowing that he had made the right choice. Thomas and Lily sat together in the garden that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The world outside might be harsh and full of judgment, but inside the small house at the edge of town there was warmth, care, and hope. And for both of them, that was enough. The next morning, the town was unusually quiet. Word traveled fast, as it always did, but this time it seemed to move faster than usual. People whispered to each other in hushed tones as they walked through the streets. Something had happened at the edge of town, at Thomas's small house, and curiosity had drawn everyone toward it. By mid-morning, a small crowd had formed, gathering in front of Thomas's gate. Men and women, old and young, children clutching their parents' hands, all stood staring, their eyes full of questions, disbelief, and a touch of suspicion. Thomas noticed the crowd from inside his house. He had expected that some people might be curious, but he had not imagined such a large gathering so quickly. Lily, who was sitting at the kitchen table with a small stack of papers and pencils, noticed the people too. She tilted her head, puzzled. "Who are all those people?" she asked softly. "They're our neighbors," Thomas replied gently. "Curious about you, I think." Lily's eyes widened. She had never seen so many people outside at once. Her small hands clutched the pencil tightly, unsure if she wanted to go outside. Thomas smiled and patted her shoulder. "Don't worry. They mean no harm. They are just curious about the changes they see." Curiosity soon turned into amazement. As Thomas opened the front door and stepped outside with Lily by his side, the crowd began to murmur louder. At first, they saw only a little girl, clean and tidy, her hair brushed and her clothes mended. But then they noticed something extraordinary: Lily's confidence. She stood tall, holding her head high, her eyes bright and alert. She smiled at the crowd shyly but without fear. One of the elders in the crowd, a man named Mr. Carter, stepped forward. "Thomas," he called, his voice a mix of concern and wonder, "what has happened here? Is this the same girl we saw yesterday?" Thomas nodded. "Yes, she is. Her name is Lily. She has been living with me for the past day. I have been helping her, taking care of her and teaching her." The crowd fell silent for a moment. People exchanged glances, unsure what to say. Some whispered that it was impossible for one day to change a child so completely. Others speculated on Thomas's intentions, wondering why he would take in a stranger's child. Then something remarkable happened. Thomas asked Lily to show the neighbors what she had been doing over the past day. With a small, hesitant smile, Lily stepped forward and took a deep breath. She held up a drawing she had made the previous evening. It was a picture of the garden outside Thomas's house. Flowers in full bloom, birds perched on the fence, and a tiny figure of herself standing under the sun. The crowd gasped. The lines were delicate, the colors vivid, and the details were surprisingly accurate for a child so young. People had expected a simple, rough sketch, but this was far beyond what anyone had imagined. "She drew this herself?" whispered a woman in the crowd. "Yes," Thomas said proudly. "She has a natural talent for drawing, and this is only the beginning." Encouraged, Lily showed more of her drawings, each one more intricate than the last. She had drawn the animals in the nearby fields, the town square, and even portraits of some of the neighbors. The people watched in awe. They began to realize that Thomas had not only helped a child in need, but had also revealed something incredible, a hidden talent that had been buried under neglect and fear. The crowd's suspicion slowly turned into admiration. People who had initially doubted Thomas now saw the kindness in his actions. They saw how gently he had nurtured Lily, how patiently he had taught her, and how much care he had put into her well-being. Children in the crowd began to clap softly, inspired by Lily's drawings, and soon the entire gathering joined in. "Thomas," said Mrs. Harris, a kind woman who often helped the elderly in town, "you've done something wonderful. You've given this little girl a chance she would never have had otherwise." Thomas smiled, a little embarrassed by the praise. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," he said. "I just gave her a safe place to live, food to eat, and someone to care for her. Anyone could do the same if they wanted to." Lily's eyes shone with gratitude as she looked up at Thomas. She had never known anyone who cared for her so much, and seeing the neighbors' reaction made her feel even braver. She realized that she could share her talents, her joy, and her heart with others. Over the next few days, more townspeople came to Thomas's house. Some brought small gifts, new clothes, books, pencils, and crayons, while others offered to help teach Lily other skills. The local school teacher even volunteered to tutor her, recognizing her intelligence and eagerness to learn. Thomas had never imagined that one act of kindness could spark such a response in the community. Lily, too, began to change. She was no longer the timid, frightened girl who had sat quietly on the market floor. She laughed freely, spoke with confidence, and even helped Thomas in the garden and around the house. She shared her drawings with the neighbors, taught younger children how to sketch, and listened intently to the stories and lessons from those who wanted to help her learn. One afternoon, Thomas decided to take Lily for a walk through the town square. People stopped to greet her, smiling warmly and complimenting her drawings. Children ran to her, curious and excited, eager to learn from her. Lily felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. She realized that she was no longer alone in the world, and that she had a place where people cared for her. The town's perception of Thomas also transformed. From being seen as an odd, quiet man who lived alone at the edge of town, he became a symbol of compassion and courage. People admired his willingness to care for someone in need, even when they themselves hesitated. They began to understand that true kindness was not measured by wealth or status, but by the willingness to help others without expecting anything in return. As weeks passed, Lily continued to grow in confidence and skill. She excelled in drawing, reading, and storytelling. Her laughter became a constant sound in Thomas's home, filling every corner with warmth. The townspeople often visited, eager to witness her progress and share in her joy. Thomas watched her with pride, knowing that she had the potential to achieve great things, all because someone had shown her kindness and believed in her. One day, during a town gathering in the square, the mayor invited Thomas and Lily to speak to everyone. Lily stepped forward, her small hand holding Thomas's, and addressed the crowd. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice clear and confident. "Because of Thomas, I have a home, friends, and the chance to learn. I hope that one day I can help others just like he helped me." The crowd erupted in applause. People clapped, cheered, and even wiped tears from their eyes. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A child transformed not just by care and attention, but by the belief that she could be more than her circumstances. Thomas hugged Lily, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had never expected recognition or praise, but he realized that the ripple effect of his actions was far greater than he had imagined. A simple act of kindness, a choice to help a frightened little girl, had inspired an entire community to see the value of compassion, empathy, and care. Life in the town slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but things had changed. People were kinder to one another, more willing to help those in need, and more observant of the hidden talents and potential in children and adults alike. Lily continued to thrive, supported by Thomas, the neighbors, and the teachers who believed in her. Her story became an inspiration told and retold, reminding everyone that even the smallest act of kindness could create extraordinary change. Thomas often reflected on that first day when he had handed a single coin to the market vendor. That one choice had changed both his life and Lily's forever. He had gained more than he had ever imagined, a companion, a sense of purpose, and the knowledge that true value was measured not in money but in love, care, and the courage to act when it mattered most. As the sun set over the small town, Thomas and Lily sat together in the garden, just as they had on her first evening in his home. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze, the birds returned to their nests, and the quiet hum of the town settled around them. Lily leaned against Thomas, her head resting on his shoulder. "I'm happy," she said softly. "So am I," Thomas replied, smiling. "We've both found something we were missing, and this is just the beginning." And so, life moved forward, filled with hope, learning, laughter, and the knowledge that even the simplest acts of kindness could grow into something extraordinary. The town would never forget the story of the little girl who had been bought for a single dollar, and the man who had changed her life with patience, love, and care. Their story became a legend of the town, a reminder for generations that real value is found not in what you give, but in the difference you make in someone else's life.